And we are back with you, Testosterone Fantasy Sports, locked and loaded, week number 11. Jeff and John in the house with me. We thank you for tuning in. Guys, it's been a great time so far. I'm really enjoying it.
Well, thanks for having me. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, it really is a pleasure to have you on, John. I mean, I know we've had a little bit of time to get to know each other, and stuff. And this is the second time you've come on, so we got to start making it a yearly ritual, man.
We're not going to hug, are we?
No, that's okay. Just a little.
Okay.
You're a good man.
That's good. I think the people at home are glad there's no man embrace going on right here.
Yeah, they got enough from you and Derek Anderson.
Yeah,
bro.
exactly.
I'm telling you, it's definitely an affair that I'm having with Derek.
Shin-shi.
But anyways, New England at Buffalo, a game I'm excited to talk about and a game I'm really excited to see. This game has been bumped up in the slate with that thing that they're doing now that I love, where they move one of the marquee matchups to Sunday night. So guys, tell me, aren't we going to see Randy Moss explode in this game on national TV?
Gotta love Randy. It's been the radiant return of Randy this year, and he's had several games of multiple touchdowns, one opponent's blown out knee in the end zone.
Yep.
And I think that both of those could happen again here this weekend. Against a secondary that's really not very good, Randy's been torching teams, and I think it'll continue, And as things go on for them, I do think that Dante Stallworth will step forward and pick up his game a little bit. But everybody who has Randy, and I'm in that same group, be a little bit wary, because if they continue to perform like this and they are undefeated as the season goes on, I think Randy's the first guy that they're going to bench come week 16 in your fantasy Super Bowl. If that's the case, Dante Stallworth will pop like crazy.
So what do you think in this matchup, John? Are all the New England players on the offensive side in play here? Buffalo can't stop anybody.
There's not a single Patriot that I have that I would not be playing this week. Tom Brady went for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns last time when they played the Bills earlier this season. He's going to have similar numbers this week. You've got Wes Welker, Dante Stallworth, like you mentioned, obviously Randy Moss, Ben Watson. I got all those guys in my lineup. I'd go Lomo, go with Lawrence Maroney there at running back, although, Kevin Falk's he's a decent guy in a PPR league. If you're in a deep PPR league or a yardage-heavy league, if you need an emergency start, that's also a route to go because it's a late game. Maybe if there's something else that happens earlier in the week or earlier in the day that you need to put a guy in, Kevin Falk's a good way to go.
Now, on Buffalo's side of things, we talked a little bit earlier in the show, if you're just joining us now, about Lee Evans moving forward. He's been playing much better of late. Jeff, can fantasy owners start Lee Evans here, or is Buffalo just going to get obliterated?
Well, I mean, Lee Evans is going to be a number 2 type wide receiver here in this game, although I don't expect him to do a whole lot. So temper your expectations for Lee Evans. I wouldn't be surprised to see him put up 1 fantasy point. But at the same time, he's got that crazy ability, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him put up 31 fantasy points either.
Yeah, I mean,
he just is that kind of guy. If he can get past the secondary, Asante Samuel's the kind of guy who's been known to take chances, so I think that he could, but don't expect a lot. If you can reserve him, do so.
What about Marshawn Lynch here? What's the latest on his injury situation?
He's been missing practice all week. If he's healthy, he's a decent play. You know what? Lynch puts up good numbers against just about anybody, especially in yardage-heavy leagues. He's very good with the all-purpose yardage. However, he's a serious question mark for this game. If he doesn't practice on Friday, because he's a late game, he's not worth the risk. Don't play him.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tough matchup for him. And I just wanted to touch on one other thing that I noticed with the whole, will the Patriots start benching their players as the season progresses? Let's not forget that earlier this week, or was it late last week, Don Shula came out and said there needed to be an asterisk beside this team if they went undefeated. And let's not forget that in Week 16, which is your fantasy bowl, New England plays against Miami. So I'm wondering if Bill Belichick might just roll his players out there and say, what do you think, Don Shula? Do we need an asterisk? And maybe potentially blow them out early, and just like they did the first time they met. So moving on to the next matchup, Kansas City traveling to face the Indianapolis Colts, who got some very bad news this week when they found out their all-world defensive end, Dwight Freeney, out for the season. They placed him on IR. Now Indianapolis, losers of 2 straight games. They're kind of reeling right now, John. What's going on with the Colts?
Well, they don't have a rhythm there. They've lost Marvin Harrison. They've lost Dallas Clark. Those are 2 guys, very evident last week how important they are to the offense. Not that you really needed a reminder, especially with Marvin Harrison. But that being said, until they get their full complement of weapons, this will be an inconsistent offense, even though they still have Joe Adai, Reggie Wayne, and Peyton Manning. So until that gets fixed, it's a team that, they're a threat to lose just about any week. That being said, I don't think they're going to lose this week.
No, they're going to get healthy in a big way against a team who really, in my opinion, doesn't deserve to make it to the playoffs. Indianapolis only one game in the lead in their division, so they need to keep the hammer down if they want to keep going. But like you, John, I agree that the injuries are starting to really take a toll, and I think that's going to prove to be in the long term what takes this team down. I like a die this weekend, and I think that he's going to go nuts.
Yeah, I don't really see any fantasy plays here on Kansas City's side of the ball. I mean, they really miss Larry Johnson now that he's not in the fold. Priest Holmes made a return last week, carried the ball well, but didn't get in the end zone. I do think that at some point in time, Priest will score a couple of touchdowns just for old time's sake. But I don't really want to advise anyone to play anybody from the Chiefs here except
you got to play
maybe
Tony Gonzalez.
Yeah, Gonzalez in a tight end mandatory league. You got to roll with him because he is one of the better talents
Setting
at the
records
position.
right now.
Exactly. But it's a tough matchup for him this week. That being said, you can't bench Gonzalez.
I like Bo. I do like Bo. Although Brody Croyle will make the start.
Yeah, that's the big question mark there. What kind of chemistry are they going to have?
Yeah.
But on talent alone, Dwayne Bowe's a good start.
San Diego traveling to Jacksonville. Now, San Diego, a team that got back in the win column last week after getting embarrassed and spanked by our very favorite team, Minnesota Vikings, 2 weeks ago. San Diego, guys, I know, Jeff, you've been talking about them as potentially one of the elite teams from the AFC, but, in spite of 6 turnovers last week by Peyton Manning, it really took some luck at the end of the game to pull out a win. I don't know. San Diego isn't doing much for me on the offensive side of the ball.
Well, they've got the defensive back, LaDainian Tomlinson, and his name's Antonio Cromartie. That one-handed interception he made was the money. I couldn't believe it. I was so impressed. And thanks to the final second interception, I was able to win by a half a point.
Yeah, Manning's
It was craziness. And I didn't find out till the next day.
Yeah,
so.
it was that fan ball audit that we love when they go
Exactly,
through. And,
yeah.
So
all that being said, it's going to be tough for them because the Jags, for whatever reason, are a great team that knows how to put other teams away. So I want to pick the Chargers in this game, but I just have a hard time picking against the Jaguars. They always seem to come away with the victory.
They're kind of reminiscent of the Tennessee Titans, where it's like they got a couple backs, they've got a quarterback who's somewhat shifty and able to move, but they really win with defense and controlling the ball. So I don't know. I don't have high hopes for LaDainian Tomlinson in this matchup, and San Diego's passing game is just not doing much at all.
No, Tomlinson and Gates are the only 2 Chargers that I feel any sort of need to start this week. And I agree, at Jacksonville, that's a very tough place to play. You've got the Chargers offense struggling. You've got a very consistent and tough Jaguar defense. I think the Jags take this one.
Yeah, well, on the other side, Maurice Jones-Drew finally, here we are, 10 weeks into the season, starting to get the carries that a number 1 back should be getting all along. So you probably want to have him in your lineup just because he's finally getting those touches. But outside of Maurice Jones-Drew, is there any other Jag you can even think about playing?
No.
Exactly.
Here's one thing that I'm curious about. They've taken a step forward as of the last 2 seasons, and the one addition that they made 2 years ago, Mike Tice.
Ooh.
Is he making that big of a difference?
Ooh.
No.
Offensive line coach.
Methinks not. Miami traveling to face Philadelphia, who really had a must-win game last week. Some big plays at the end of the game from my man, Brian Westbrook. Peace to you out there, Yeasty, taking you down in the tough league. Got to rub it in one more time. But Brian Westbrook blowing up, guys. He's been an elite back this season. Definitely one of the top 3 players in fantasy football. I love this matchup for Westbrook and Philly. I think Philly goes nuts here, John.
I agree. Another guy I like is Reggie Brown. He's averaging 70 yards per game since their bye. I think he's a guy that, with that offense starting to click a little bit more because of the talents of Westbrook, I think Brown's another sneaky start in fantasy leagues, and I think Philly takes this game easy.
Brian Westbrook with 1,200 all-purpose yards on the season. He's the 9th best wide receiver in the league right now. And he's on career number pace. So you're riding him big time. As long as he can stay healthy, things are going really well for him. And if you've got him, he's probably the best back in the league right now for consistency. And what's great about him is that you got him at the end of the first round.
Yep. The injuries are the only problem there. He's always, he's a big
But he's
risk
had no
for
leg
that.
injuries so far this year, just a little bit of a rib.
Yeah, it's
obstacle.
been great. Brian Westbrook owners, you rode him hard last season. He's producing really well this season. But the guy I want to touch on here is Donovan McNabb. He's been, very embattled this season. People are talking about, is he going to be just released at the end of the year? What's going on with Andy Reid and the turmoil and all this stuff? Donovan McNabb comes out last week. Jeff, he throws 4 touchdown passes. I think Donovan McNabb is about to to make a statement, and I love him here in this matchup. Miami's defense sucks.
Well, you love everybody against the Dolphins' defense these days. So if you've got Donovan McNabb, he makes a great play this weekend. In my mind, he's a number 2 quarterback right now. Just with the kind of unsettled situation there, he's dealing with the media grizzle these days and stuff. And although I think he will produce this weekend, I'm not liking him that much down the stretch.
So we thank you for joining our show. We want to welcome you right after the show is over to go onto our website, testosteronesports.com. Check out the Fat Chat. We've also got free access to all of our rankings and video cast. If you missed any portion of this show, you want to go on there. We put all of the show on there. And this week, we're running a little bit long, so we're going to have 5 matchups that'll only be viewable on the website, testosteronesports.com. Check it out as soon as the show is over for the Fat Chat and a plethora of all things fantasy football. Guys, we've got one matchup that we're going to break down here at the end of the show. It's Chicago at Seattle. This is the game that got bumped from the Sunday night slot for a myriad of reasons. These two teams have definitely both had their struggles on the season. It's in Seattle. That makes me kind of think that it might go their way, but they really can't run the ball. John, shed some light on this matchup for us.
They can't run the ball that well. That being said, the Bears are not very good at stopping the run. They've allowed 100-yard total rushers, a running back to go over 100 total yards for 5 straight weeks. If it's Maurice Morris, he's a decent bet to do that this week. That gives them the balance they need in that offense. Matt Hasselbeck's obviously having a very good year. They get Deion Branch back. I think Seattle handles this game at home against the Bears this week.
You know, these two teams don't really like each other very much, I think. This is a rematch of last year's NFC Championship game, and so I think both teams are going to be up big for it. Seattle headed back to the playoffs. You know, the Bears going the opposite direction. Ha ha ha, Bear fans.
That's
you
right.
Suck.
Nice.
No, but I've got a take on Sean Alexander. I know you guys talked a little bit about guys who are going to help you in the fantasy playoffs. I think Sean Alexander is a great buy low commodity right now, and the reason is because when I've watched him run the ball, I don't see any kind of desire out of him when he runs. He's not digging in for those extra yards, not giving the second effort, and I think the reason is because he's been reserving himself. He knows with not much tread left on the tire, he doesn't have a lot of fuel in the tank left, and he wants to give his team the most when it really helps them. Now, they have been winning without him. So I think that as the season wears on, as it gets colder up in Seattle, that I think that he's going to pick it up so that they can go into the playoffs and he'll be running with rhythm. So I think that as the season wears on, he's going to continue to improve and the touchdowns will come.
Now, Chicago welcomes Rex Grossman back to the starting lineup. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. Bears fans certainly view it as a bad thing, but will Rex, with a fresh mindset, John, and going against the defense that isn't elite by any stretch of the imagination, will Rex be serviceable here? Can he help this offense move the ball?
Not really. Like you said, the Seattle defense is serviceable, but their secondary is actually pretty strong. They've got a couple good young corners there. I think this is a secondary that's vastly underrated. Grossman, we've obviously seen his struggles play out on a national stage for the last couple years. I don't think this is the week he gets on track. They're not going to establish a running game with Cedric Benson because he's not very good. So I think this is going to be a rough week for the Chicago offense.
The defense is going to feast on the Bears. If you ever wanted to see a Seahawk eat a bear, this is the one to watch.
And who hasn't?
Right, I know.
Nice. Yeah, that'd be pretty amazing. Check it out on YouTube. Well, we thank you for joining us here on Testosterone Fantasy Sports. It's a weekly love fest that we do here because we love fantasy football. It's a labor of love that we do. We thank you so much for checking it out, and we know you check it out every week because if you want to win,
you must tune in
to Testosterone Fantasy Sports. Thanks for joining us, John, and we'll see you guys next time on Testosterone Fantasy Sports.